I'm really excited that we're getting closer and closer and closer to our investor presentation. It's going to happen sometime during the month of March, and we're counting down the days until that happens, because not only will we have the opportunity to hear more about what took place in Q4 2022, which I'm particularly excited about given the fact that we had such a strong end to that quarter, given the PJM grid event that took place in late December, which I'll link to a video in the description below where I talked about that like in pretty much real time. Not only that, but I'm particularly interested in hearing more about how we're doing right now, Q1 2023. As we've kind of talked about before, I think it would be particularly interesting to have a conversation during the investor presentation that talks about our ability to import power, to import electricity from the PJM grid to power our data centers. Now, the reason why I think that's so important is because, generally speaking, grid prices have been on the lower side now in Q1 2023. For the sake of conversation, let's just say they've averaged around $30 a megawatt hour. And when I say the grid, I'm really specifically referring to the PJM Penelec zone of the grid where Scrubgrass is located. That's one of our power plants. And the PJM PPL zone within the grid, which is where Panther Creek is located. Let's assume that the average for both those zones is about $30 a megawatt hour. Now, guidance for 2023 stipulated that our net cost of power would be between $45 and $50 a megawatt hour. Let's assume we as a company are able to produce electricity at both our power plants for an average net cost of power of $45 a megawatt hour. So the question is, if grid prices are closer to $30 a megawatt hour, maybe this is an opportunity to kind of provide some context and color as to how we're able to buy that cheaper electricity from the grid and to use that cheaper electricity to mine Bitcoin, to power our data centers. And to also perhaps give a little bit of context as to why the power plants would still be running, right? Which makes sense. You don't want to necessarily shut them down. There is a cost when you cycle a plant, $50,000 or more. So, maybe a little bit of color or context as to, yes, you know what, we run the plants on low power mode. Maybe we're targeting 15 megawatts as a load factor at Scrubgrass, maybe about 10 megawatts for a load factor at Panther Creek, or whatever those numbers might happen to be. And, we're going to stay connected to the grid from that perspective, but the majority, the overwhelming majority of the electricity that we need to power our data centers, we're going to import that straight from the PJM grid because it makes economic sense to do so, and it gives us a bigger margin. But I think it could be useful to just get a little bit more information about that because, that's yet another amazing aspect of our business that I'm not entirely sure the market truly comprehends. That we have the optionality to say, hey, you know what? If our power plants, if we basically as a company, if we are producing electricity for a certain price, but the grid happens to be offering us, a lower price of electricity, we can simply idle our power plants and import that much cheaper electricity to power our data centers. I mean, that is pretty amazing. It's almost like we get the best of like all variables there, like best of all worlds almost. But I do think it could be very helpful to have some discussion about that, because absent there being official dialogue, instead of just me and a couple others talking about this, I think it'll give a lot more weight and credibility to that aspect of our business. Even though, to be fair, all of this stuff has been documented in our public filings. I mean, it's not like I'm just inventing this. I mean, in many cases, I'm citing specific verbiage within regulatory filings that literally say this. Hey, to get the best price, to basically to have the best margin possible. I'm paraphrasing here. We have the ability to essentially pull power from the grid to power the data center. I mean, I'm thinking, I can't remember as I'm recording this, like specifically where that comes from, but the verbiage is in our regulatory filings. I mean, it's right there in black and white. But then again, I mean, maybe not everybody looks at that. Or I may say it, but somebody might say, this guy looks a bit, kind of crazy. I mean, maybe we want to wait till we hear like an official message from our friends in management. So that, I think, what I'm saying basically is, I think there's a real opportunity to highlight the incredible diversity the diverse nature of our options, like the different things that we could do as a business. That it's not just, hey, we plug a machine in and we sit there and we sort of hope and pray that Bitcoin goes up in price and that the network hash rate isn't so bad and that we can maybe make some money. That's a pretty one-dimensional business. And that's not to knock anybody else's business out there, okay? Because the truth is, hey, look, if Bitcoin skyrockets, those are probably the smartest guys in the room, right? Just having a bunch of machines that are plugged in and you're waiting and hey, it goes up, great, you're going to cash in. But what if that doesn't happen, which hasn't been happening? What if you go through a prolonged crypto winter? Well, I do think there's a tremendous value in having more than one option. And our business model is such that we have more than one option. So I think this is just a great opportunity to, hey, in Q4 2022, awesome. We can shut down the data center. We'll send all our electricity that we're creating to the grid to help stabilize the grid, and in so doing, generate amazingly useful revenue. Again, see that video in the description below. But now, okay, that's one part of our business plan that we could do, or our operational optionality. But hey, now the grid prices are pretty low. Well, guess what? We could just turn around, idle our power plants, pull that cheaper electricity, off the grid, use that to power our data centers, and make money that way. I mean, so I'm just really looking forward to the investor presentation. My excitement continues to grow because I know that there's going to be some really exciting stuff that's shared during that presentation, and I'm just really, really, I'm just so excited. I really am, and it's hard to contain myself. I'm looking forward to the presentation. So we're counting down the days until the official presentation, but I'm just kind of sharing some thoughts regarding potential topics for that presentation, because I know a lot of people are watching to see what's going on in the so-called crypto mining industry, and I think this might be an opportunity to start differentiating ourselves a little bit from our peers, who, again, as I've said before, I wish nothing but the best for everybody else in this industry. We need to compete with ourselves. We need to try to close that gap between where we are and what our potential is. That's where our success is going to be found. For us to succeed, nobody else in our industry has to fail. It's not that type of binary thing. We have to make sure that we stay in business, that we do the best that we can, we take advantage of every opportunity, and whenever we see a problem, we don't run away from the problem, but we get closer to it, because problems are where those opportunities exist. And I'm really, really excited for this investor presentation. And I hope you are as well. All right, see you tomorrow.